As a kid, I never really played any Sonic games or watched any TV shows when I grew up. Even as I grew older, I still never played any of them. It didn't help at the time that Sonic was seen as a joke, and because of that, I stayed far away from the Sonic series like the freaking plague. Then one day, PS Plus gave me Sonic Forces for free, and at the time, I watched a lot of Game Grump videos about them playing Sonic, and because of that, I was excited to play it just to see how awful it would be. So I played the game, and I realized that I really liked the game. While I wasn't a big fan of it, it was the one that started to make me think about playing the other Sonic games. I tried both Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, I played Sonic Frontiers when it came out, and then I got Sonic X Shadow Generations as well. And I had a blast playing it, and that's when it began to dawn on me. I was becoming a Sonic fan. Like I said, I avoided Sonic when I was younger due to all negative things I heard about the fanbase. You have the DeviantArt stuff, the Sonic Dream Collection, Sonic 06, the Shipping Wars, all those weird videos, and Chris Chan, which is nuts said about that. What really made me stay away from Sonic were the Game Grump videos. Their videos on Sonic Adventure, the Wii game, Sonic 06, and classic games made me think that Sonic was a bad franchise with a line of awful games and annoying fanbase that just couldn't accept that their game sucked. Oh, how wrong I was. After playing a little bit of Shadow Generations, I decided to play all the mainline games, see if I liked any other Sonic games. After playing a chunk of them, I decided to make this video going over all the mainline games and some spin-off games. And what do I think of Sonic now? I was so fucking wrong. Sonic Hedgehog is the best thing ever. I didn't think I would ever say it, but I've become a huge fan of the franchise in making this video, especially Shadow the Hedgehog. But due to this, I decided that I wasn't just going to cover all the mainline games, but I plan to cover every Sonic game, TV show, movie, and all the comics too. But for now, I'll just be covering the mainline games and some important spin-off games in this episode. I will also cover all the recent movies and the Knuckles TV show. But now that's all said, it's time to talk about the game that started it all. Sonic the Hedgehog was made so that Sega could have a mascot for a company and to make a game to rival Mario, which was the main focus in their advertising, with the famous catchphrase, Sega does when Nintendo don't. The game would sell incredibly well and Sonic would go on to rival Mario for years to come. I have attempted to play Sonic before when I was a kid with the DS port, but I just couldn't get past Green Hill, mostly because I fucking sucked at playing games when I was a kid. What do I think of the game now? I think the game is still not that good. Don't get me wrong, Green Hill is an amazing level, but after that, most levels are just not that fun to play. Marble Zone was not a good level to transition to after playing Green Hill. Instead of speeding for the level, you are jumping on slow moving platform above lava, and also there aren't that many checkpoints, which means that if you die, you have to go for the same slow platforming again. Labyrinth Zone also isn't that much better for being a water level, which are my least favorite kind of levels in these games. This level is just not that fun to play for, slow moving platforms, enemies that you can barely see jumping at you, and spikes that you can't see since they're off screen. Also, I can't talk about this level without mentioning the drum music, which is very great to hear when you're waiting for an air bubble to show up and it just never does. That was just fun to deal with. It all ends with an annoying boss fight. I enjoy all the fights in this game, but this one just sucks. You follow Eggman and climb up on platforming, but you can barely see anything above you, which leads to so many cheap deaths. And also, once the water is above you, you're most likely screwed and will drown. Overall, just a shitty boss. I will say the Spring Yard and Starlight Zone are pretty good, but it's get dragged down by the other levels. It all ends with the final level being really fucking annoying to play through. The game puts everything I hate about this game into one level. Hidden enemies, spike traps, water sections, and a bunch of cheap deaths. At least the final boss was easy to beat. I just don't like this game. While I do appreciate it for starting the franchise, and as I said, Green Hill is really good and fun to play through, it's just not enough for me to ignore all my other issues with this game. Due to how well the first game did, Sega will make a sequel to it, which will also sell incredibly well, and will finalize Sonic the Hedgehog as Sega's mascot. The game will also introduce Tails, who would go on to be with Sonic in almost every game. Not gonna lie, after playing the first game, I was really worried that this one would have the same issues as the last game. That game fucking traumatized me, but after playing Sonic 2, I would say this is my favorite classic game. Almost every level in this game is well designed and fun to play through. Chemical Planet is the highlight of the game for me. They even made the water section of this level really fun to play through. The only levels I didn't like were Mystic Cave, with that one just being really frustrating to get through, and Metropolis being a really long and annoying level to get through as well. The level that I disliked a lot was Casino Night Zone. Actually, it's my most hated level idea in all of Sonic. It's just incredibly annoying to get through. I especially hate the pinball mechanic. I never found this mechanic fun at all, and it just makes going through these levels a pain in the ass, as you had to stop and screw up the pinball to get where you needed it to go, which I never could, and I just get stuck in the level. But even with these problems, the game is still very fun to play. Even the Sky Chase level wasn't that bad once I realized that the plane follows you wherever you go, so my only struggle with this game was the final boss, Mecha Sonic and the Death Egg Robot. This became my nameless king. Mecha Sonic was so annoying to fight with, since you had to only hit his face since his quills would hurt you, which led to so many deaths as I would just overshoot it and hit his quills. But the Death Egg Robot made me his bitch. He isn't even really that hard of a boss, just a long, boring boss as you can only hit him for limited times. You can only hit him as he moves on, but I can never get the timing right, so if I screwed up, I had to go back to the last boss. Also, you get no rings, so you have to go back to Mecha Sonic every single time you make a mistake. It took me an hour just to beat it. I don't know why it took me that long, but it did. Eventually, I would defeat and finally beat the game. Besides that boss in the casino level, I still really love this game, and it was a genuine surprise I like it that much. But for now, let's move on to the next one. What started out as a port for the first game eventually turned into its own thing. It would introduce Amy and also introduce Sonic's most iconic rival, Metal Sonic, who would go on to be a consistent antagonist until they just stopped using him, but he does get a lot more love in the comics. I enjoy this game a lot, but it's my least favorite classic besides the first one. The intro for the game is really good. It was made by the same studio that made Dragon Ball and it shows with a great animation. The song is also really good, it has such a timeless feel to it and I've listened to it way too many times. As I said, Amy will be introduced to this game, but is captured by Metal Sonic like immediately, which just makes her a damsel in distress, something that will be changed once we get into the adventure games. Metal Sonic on the other hand is a really cool character and also has a unique boss fight. The fight requires you to beat Metal Sonic in a race in which you have to find different ways to go through your level to beat him as he attempts to hit you. Levels on the other hand are also really good. Bomb Tree Panic is fun, Tile Tempest is also fun and cool to look at. Most levels are fun to play through but are more exploration focused than the other games. I'm not a big fan of this as it makes navigating levels a chore. Wacky Workbench is my least favorite area as you keep getting thrown up in the air so many fucking times that you can get lost real quickly. Or you're trying to get down from a platform but keep getting sent back to the top of it over and over again. Stardust Speedway is also another level that annoys me as I keep getting lost in it, but it does look really cool. Something I haven't mentioned yet is the time travel mechanic. Throughout the stages there are signs that you can run past, and if you keep running it'll let you go to the past or future. Depending on which one you pick, changes the stage, which gives the game a lot of replay value as you get to explore 3 different versions of the game. I didn't do this, but if you were to find a machine and break it, you get access to a different future version of the stage. This is a fun mechanic to play with, but can be hard to do as sometimes you don't get enough area to run through to be able to activate it, which is always annoying. The one thing I do hate about this game is the final area. This fucking area sucks so much, it gives you an incredibly difficult platforming part, and an annoying light bug boss, which sucks so much ass, just to end with a pretty easy boss. Besides the ending, the game is still really good, I just don't like the exploration aspect of it. This was the first of many Sonic Game Gear games, and this one isn't bad at all. I won't spend too much time on it, but it's really just a mediocre game. The stages are pretty lackluster to go through and are incredibly short. You thought Sonic Forces stages were short? One level took me 38 seconds, I am not joking. The only thing notable about the stages are that for the later half of the game, they use bombless pits so many times as obstacles, which are the bane of my existence every time they use them in these games. The final boss of this one is pretty bad as you have to try and hit Eggman, but the lasers just keep getting in my way. No matter which way I went to try to avoid it, it would just still fucking hit me. Overall, this game is fine. It's not that bad, but I don't see myself playing this one ever again. This game is a combination of both Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Sonic & Knuckles due to how massive the game was. It will go on to become the best-selling Sega Genesis game, and it shows. I enjoy this game a lot. I will say I did start to get tired of playing these games back to back, especially with this one being the longest, being 2 to 3 hours long. Dear God. The graphics for this game are incredible for the time and look so beautiful. This will also be the first game to really try to tell a story. While Sonic CD did attempt to, it wasn't as evolved as this game is. The story is about Dr. Eggman tricking Knuckles into helping him stop Sonic by saying Sonic is after the Master Emerald. Knuckles will become a fun rival to Sonic till Shadow will replace that role, but even then, Knuckles is a pretty strong character, being the last of his kind and was given the responsibility of protecting the Master Emerald. Really helps makes this character stand out. The stages are also really good. Each one is built designed with many different rounds and also has a boss at the end of each act, which are all incredibly fun to fight. The made a water level fun, but really every level is fun to play, besides Carnival Night, which is Casino Night but somehow worse. The only time I got annoyed was at the final bosses for the first part, as they have you beat the free bosses with no checkpoints, but they aren't that bad. They're pretty easy to beat once you know how they work. It's just annoying that when you die at the last one, you have to go through all those bosses again. The second part of the game is about the same as the first, but it's somehow even more fun and prettier to look at. Mushroom Hills is a fun different take for the first level. Going from green foliage in most first levels to a dull brown forest full of mushrooms with vines that keep you from moving was a nice change of pace. Every level once again is fun to play through besides the second act of Standoffless, as the ghosts can get really annoying to deal with. The fight with Knuckles at the end was pretty fun, but was pretty easy to beat as well. The highlight of the game for me is Sky Sanctuary. The level is peak classic Sonic. At this point, Knuckles realizes that Eggman tricked him and stole the Master Emerald to power up his Death Egg machine, and sends a bunch of robots out to destroy Angel Island. The level is incredibly fun to play with amazing music. I mean, just listen to it. There are also 3 Mecha Sonic bosses in this stage, but they all have their own checkpoints beforehand and are really fun to fight. It's just an amazing level. The final 3 bosses of this game also have checkpoints and are also really fun to fight and beat. Overall, this game's just really fucking good. While I still prefer Sonic 2, if I were able to play this game again, I'd probably like it more than I do now, honestly. This game is a sequel to Sonic Chaos and is actually better than the first. The story is just a rehash of Knuckles getting tricked again and helping the bad guys till the end where he realized he was tricked, but it's fine for a Game Gear game. The game also introduces Fang, who would go on to flourish in the comics, but that's for another day. For now, he's just a regular villain. Stages are more difficult and longer and actually much more prettier than Sonic Chaos, but aren't really that notable. The Eggman boss fight at the end is pretty annoying as you have to try and hit him as he goes in and out of tubes while dodging shit, but I can barely ever hit him when he comes out before he disappears again, which is just such bullshit. But really, that's about it for this game. There's not that much to say about it than saying that it's better than the first one. One of the bigger spin-off games, this will be the game that introduced Team Chaotic, which consists of Vector the Alligator, Espio the Chameleon, and Charmy the Bee. Characters who do show up a bunch of times in the games, but the characters will only be expanded upon in the comics. The game will also reintroduce Mighty the Armadillo, who was originally introduced in the Sonic arcade game. He will also be a character who's really only expanded upon in the comics, which is a common theme for a lot of these side characters. They would just usually show up for like 1 or 2 games and then just disappear, but in the comics they get a bunch of backstory, which honestly gets me excited to read them. Before we get into the game, we gotta go over the new mechanic in this one, which is the rubber band mechanic. This was quietly used in the last game as a way to make sure that Tails is able to keep up with the player, but it's now used as a way to get through the levels. I'm gonna say that it's fun to use, but it's not. It can get you to go at incredible speed, but just so clunky that I spent the first few levels just trying to figure out how it works. It also sometimes just begins to glitch out and makes these other places that you didn't want to go to. It's just a ticking time bomb deal until it glitches out and sends you flying all over the place. The actual stages of the games are pretty decent. They aren't too difficult to get through, most likely due to how unpredictable the rubber band can be, but they all have their unique style and it just looks really nice. Something that is done differently for level selection is that you don't get to select which stage you do. It's all up to the roulette machine that determines which level you do. I honestly like this since there are 5 acts per stage and due to how the levels get mixed up, you never get tired of them. There are bosses at the end of each stage, but they aren't that bad to deal with. The only boss that sucked was the fucking Metal Sonic fight. After you beat all the stages, the roulette turns into a boss that's controlled by Metal Sonic. What could have been a fun fight is now just a chance of luck. If you don't get it right, you have to dodge obstacles, which isn't too bad, but since it's a fucking roulette machine, it's just based on luck if you win. The actual final boss looks really cool and it's fun to fight. Not difficult at all, but I'll take it over the last one. Also, I'm not going for the Chaos Emeralds with the true ending in these classic games, just to save time. Because of that, I got the bad ending, which is just a giant robot destroying the city as it all fucking burns down. Fucking wild. This game was the bane of my existence, but before I get into why this game fucking sucks, we should go over how the game mechanics work. The gameplay is completely different from Sonic, as instead of fast-paced platforming, it decides to be a slow-paced platformer that also wants to be non-linear like Metroid. Now, I wouldn't mind that if it was done well, but it's not. The game just drags on and on with boring platforming and slow enemies. It's not even fun to explore since there are no maps to help you figure out where you're at besides the fucking level select screen, which makes exploring the areas a fucking chore. It also doesn't help that the items required to progress for the game are hidden all over the map and they can be easily missed. For example, there's a level where you have to use a boat to get up a waterfall, but if you don't get the power up for the boat that lets you jump higher, you can't get past the level. Fine, I'll go find the damn power up. But only one problem, I don't know where the fuck it's at. I looked up which level it was in, which I did find, but I had no idea where it was inside it, mostly because there was no map. Now I know this is a Game Gear game and even games around the time didn't tell you where shit was at, but for the love of God, they could at least make exploring these levels not a slog to get through. By the time I was getting to the end, I was actually beginning to get a bad headache, and that's just from how annoying this game can be. And when I did find that damn power up, the ability just didn't want to work at all. I kept trying and trying, I just could not get up the fucking waterfall. Eventually, I did get up there, but god damn, did it fucking try to push me. The bosses aren't any better either. They weren't too bad, but they just sucked to fight. I kept getting hit with bombs when I'm just trying to find the right position to hit the boss since you have to be in one particular position, and dear god, it's annoying to get there. The only good thing about this game is that canonically, they made Tales of Terrors, which is really funny. I never played a Metroid game, so maybe I'm just not into that Metro style, but it doesn't really matter. I fucking hate this game, and I'm never gonna play it again. This might be one of the weirdest Sonic games I ever played, and I really don't have to say anything at all. I mean, just look at the footage. It's pretty obvious that they were wanting to emulate the Donkey Kong Country style, especially since they were beginning to push Sonic toward 3D, but it just looks awful. This looks like a shitty fan game instead of an actual official game from Sega. I will say the game's saving grace is that it's pretty easy to get through besides one level, and it's the fucking water level. Besides the fact that it's a water level, it's a fucking maze, and I can barely figure out where I'm supposed to go. It doesn't help that the controls fucking suck, which are made worse by the water physics. This level was a fucking nightmare. But besides that, the game's not really that bad. Honestly, Tales Adventure was worse, because at least the game didn't waste your time, and honestly just a weird experiment to look at. This was Sega's big attempt to push Sonic out of 2D and into 3D, and it was something alright. Before I get into it, I will say I wasn't able to beat this one due to motion sickness, which is something I don't even have problems with. I could play Resident Evil 7 VR for hours, I have no problems. But this game was actually able to get me sick. It's more likely due to the shaky camera, faulty controls, and weird angle, and mix it all together, and that was actually able to make me sick. I was actually going to be able to beat the game until I walked away to go do something, came back and saw Steam turned off, and I lost all the progress I made, so yeah, I won't be beating this one. I'll probably beat the game later in the series, but for now I just want to talk about the first half of the game. The gameplay in this game is pretty different compared to other Sonic games, as the objectives kill all the enemies to get all the flickers, yeah that's what they decided to call them, bring them to a ring and just rinse and repeat until the level is done. It's not that bad, but it's pretty lackluster compared to other games. I will say that even though the game does look like shit, it's incredibly impressive for the time. Even the intro is really impressive, even though it's really fucking creepy as well. The stages aren't really that special, they're all about the exact same. The Carnival one did have a bunch of springs which did suck, but luckily that's where my game turned off so I don't have to spend that much time on it. The boss fights aren't too bad either, pretty easy to beat thankfully. While sadly I couldn't beat this one, the game was still pretty interesting, but it just feels like a tech demo gone wrong. For the last few games, Sonic's been attempting to go 3D for a while with various results, but this was the one to finally push Sonic into 3D for good, and it was a huge success. Looking at it nowadays, it is very dated, but for the time, it was probably groundbreaking. Something that I think we take for granted with this game was how well they did with turning Sonic's 2D mechanics into 3D. Not only did they have to change to a different gameplay style, but also implement mechanics that will Sonic's speed, but also have to build a personality for Sonic. Now they did build a decent personality for him in the cartoons, but his personality in this game was pretty good, with him being a guy who has a bit of an ego but cares for others and is willing to fight for what he believes in. The game is also pretty ambitious. It attempted to tell a giant story with 6 different perspectives that all come together with a deeper lore that fully connects everything. While the result is a bit all over the place, the game was still able to bring all these elements together to make a pretty fun game. Before I get into the game, I should probably say I am using the DX version of the game, which is a pretty shitty port. The only copy I have is the one on my Xbox 360, and I can't run it on my computer since my computer is actual fucking shit. So I wasn't able to play the original Dreamcast version, which does suck, but it's the only way I can play it. For now, let's get into the game's story. The overall story of the game is that Dr. Eggman is trying to collect all the Chaos Emeralds to turn Chaos into a giant monster that will destroy the city so he can build his Eggman land. They do the story so many times throughout the games. As most of them are just monsters of weak stories for Eggman, there's also another story going on in the background that you pick pieces of throughout each story that shows the origin of Chaos, the war between Kidnas and the Chows, and how it led to the end of the Kidnas tribe. A pretty deep story, but the game rarely goes into it. I do like how it's implemented into this story as it helps make the game feel a lot more grand. The first story we'll go over is Sonic's story, which is pretty simple. He just goes after Eggman and follows his plan, the average Sonic story. The real meat of his stories though are the levels, which are so much fun. The only level I didn't like was the casino level. The objective for this level is to collect enough rings to get the Chaos Emeralds, and the only way to get those rings are by playing all the minigames inside the area. But the way the game wants you to beat this level is by failing the pinball game, which drops you down to a path where you collect a bunch of rings. The only problem is that when I first played this game, I didn't know that, so I just kept doing the fucking slot machine until I got the required rings. Yeah, I was a dumbass. So after I recorded this, I went back to the game to get footage for it, but it turns out that there were actually no slot machines. I swore that I remember doing this years ago when I originally played this for the first time, but it looks like I might have mistaken it for another game. But yeah, so it looks like I have my own personal Mandela effect, but back to the video. But besides that, every level is pretty fun to play through. It's still pretty impressive of how they are able to transition Sonic from 2D to 3D. The homing attack, while really janky, is a great addition to the game, as they would go on to perfect it and it will become a staple in the series. Even though most levels are pretty fun, I will say none of them did stick out to me. The only one I would say was my favorite was probably Speed Highway. There was one thing that did start to piss me off, which was the final boss. The boss is pretty easy, but at the end of the fight, my homing attack would just not work, so because of that I just kept going over him and falling off the platform. And because of that, I would have to keep hearing the same stupid line from Eggman over and over.
It's no way! I can't believe.
Now on to Tails. Tails at the time didn't really have a personality, he was just a kid character at most. But now Tails will become a tech genius and the story will be about him believing in himself and not relying on Sonic. One thing I like about Sonic Adventure was that it didn't just transition the gameplay, but also the characters as well. They became more independent from Sonic, which would help make these characters stand out from each other really well, and it helped in the long run. Tails' gameplay is similar to Sonic, but with the ability to fly, which allows you to skip giant chunks of the level. Another thing that they changed is that you also have to race Sonic Sonic to go, which does help shake up the gameplay a bit. The story doesn't really change that much till the end, where after the egg carrier crashes, Eggman attempts to bomb the city and it's up to Tails to stop him. This time, instead of racing Sonic, you race Eggman, and once you beat him, you have to fight him in a boss fight, which is pretty easy. The story was pretty simple and nice, which helped turn Tails into a character he is today. Now let's go to Knuckles. There isn't too much to go over from Knuckles. The story for him is that the Master Emerald break, then it's up to him to collect all the shards. That's really it. The gameplay also changes to be a scavenger hunt, which isn't really that bad compared to what they will be in the next game. They are just fun short levels, nothing too special. The only thing that does happen in the story is that he gets tricked by Eggman to fight Sonic once again, and it goes exactly the way you think it does.
Smooth move, knucklehead.
There isn't too much else to say about Knuckles, so let's move on to Amy's story. Amy has a decent story. She meets a bird that's getting chased down by a giant robot, and she has to help the bird from getting caught. Her levels aren't that good though. They're mostly a shittier version of Sonic levels and don't have much depth besides the annoying puzzles. The story ends with her beating the giant robot and claiming,
I'll make that Sonic respect me.
They would go back on this immediately, but that's besides the point. Amy's story is pretty decent. I just wish the levels were more fun to play through. But now let's move on to the big story. Big story is simply him just chasing Froggy over the place, even saving him from chaos with a fucking fishing pole. That was fun to do. I dreaded playing this story, since I only watched the game grab videos on it and got to see Aaron go for absolute hell trying to catch the frog. But before I played it, I looked at the instructions that explain how you're supposed to catch Froggy, and what do you know, it's actually pretty easy. I do think that the game should have told you in the actual game how you're supposed to do it, especially since you don't have to do the same thing for catching a fish, but it doesn't really matter. Once you know how to play the game, the story goes by real quickly. This one just sucks. Even if you do know what you're supposed to do, the story is still really boring and a big pace breaker, and just a drag to get through every time you play the game. Now let's go over to the last character story, which is Gamma's. Now the story for Gamma is actually pretty dark. After Gamma captures Amy, Amy is able to convince Gamma to revolt against Eggman, and he does this by going through each level and killing his comrades, which eventually leads you to the end where you fight your rival from the first level on the fallen egg carrier. Kill Bill style. Once the fight is over and you kill him, Gamma dies from his wound, which releases the birds that are inside him, which are actually the birds' parents from Amy's story. The story is played straight up, no jokes. It has a somber backing track to it. This might be my favorite story in the game, as it executes the story really well. The only issue is that the levels are really janky with the shooting mechanics. This would be done better in Sonic Adventure 2, but it's still pretty weird to play up in this game, but it doesn't ruin the story at all. Now that we've gone for all the character story, it's time to wrap this game up. I do want to say, for how glitchy the game is supposed to be, I didn't really encounter that many glitches. The only problem I had was with the final boss of Sonic story, and that's it. I also want to go over the music. From this game on, most Sonic games will focus on rock music, and I fucking love it. While I was making this video, I listened to almost every Crush 40 song, as all of their songs are amazing. I won't talk about music that much from now on, mostly because almost every game has amazing music, and I just don't want to keep repeating myself over and over. Now let's go over the last story that brings everything together. Last story is basically Chaos getting all the Chaos Emeralds and beginning to destroy the city, which is the coolest part of this game. Sonic quickly turns into Super Sonic using the Chaos Emeralds that were dropped by Chaos and starts to beat him up. This was a great final fight. The only thing I didn't like was that I kept getting stunlocked non-stop, which started annoying me a lot. But this is still a fun fight. It's a lot more spectacle than a boss fight, but honestly I want that more than annoying difficult fights that ruined the experience, which later games begin to do a lot more. Overall, Sonic Adventure was a fantastic game. A dated game, absolutely, but it was responsible for successfully pushing Sonic into 3D, and I have to appreciate that for it. This game's pretty good, and was able to outdo the first game with better animation, better voice acting, and a much better story. As much as I will praise it, I do have a love-hate relationship with this game. While I do love a lot of things about this game, there are a bunch of things that just annoy the shit out of me in this one. I will get into some of those reasons later, but for now, let's go over the star of the show, Shadow. Shadow is such a great character, and he's a much better rival than Knuckles, as the only way Knuckles and Sonic fight is because Knuckles got tricked for the 40th time. Shadow isn't just a great rival, but also has a great backstory. He was created to help find a cure for Maria, who had a chronic illness at the time and was the granddaughter of General Robotnik. But sadly, Maria was killed by a raid performed by a gun. This leads to Shadow being frozen, but once Eggman wakes him for his plan, he swears revenge on humanity as he plans to destroy the Earth with the Ark.
I promise you. Revenge!
This just elevates Shadow into a great villain, also helps makes his redemption even better when he realizes what Maria really wanted.
For all people who live on that planet, give them a chance to be happy. Let them live their dreams. Shadow, I know you can do it. That's the reason why you were brought into this world.
This led to Shadow becoming a fan favorite character for years to come. Before we get into the game, let's go over the story. The main story of the game is Eggman collecting Chaos Emeralds to activate his giant space station so he can threaten the world into submission. Just the usual Eggman shenanigans. The game will also introduce Rouge, who was hired by Gun to watch over Shadow. She would also go on to become a fan favorite character for several reasons. Let's go over the stages now. There are two different stories, the Hero Story and Dark Story, and while they are different, the gameplay mechanics are the exact same. The Hero Story follows Sonic as he tries to clear his name as the police blames him for all the things that Shadow did, while the Dark Story is just Shadow collecting the Chaos Emeralds and going over his backstory. Sonic and Shadow's stages work the same and are just much more polished versions of stages from the first game. Almost all the stages are great. Green Forest, Radical Highway, and Meadow Harbor. The best one is Cityscape, which might be just the best Sonic stage of all time. The music is amazing and the level is just so much fun to play. I could replay that level over and over and not get bored of it. The only stages I didn't like are the last ones for both Sonic and Shadow, mostly because the stages are really long and are constantly above bottomless pits. And because of the janky homing attack and how fast you'll be going, it's very easy to spring off the road real quickly and die. But at least the stage theme and music is really awesome. Well, let's now go over Tails and Eggman stages. They are basically just much more polished versions of the Gamma stages. They are pretty fun levels, but not as fun as Sonic stages, but they do the job. None of the stages really stand out to me and can be quite boring at times. The only thing that annoyed me was the weird water enemies that are always annoying to lock onto, but that's it. I don't have that much else to say about these stages, as while they were fun, they just weren't what I was wanting from a Sonic game. But now let's get into the reason why I don't like this game, the Knuckles and Rouge stages. These stages fucking suck. They are just the scavenger hunt stages but turn up to 11. The stages are giant and the tracker is limited to only one shard and has a small limited range. They aren't too bad to beat, but the space stage for Rouge is the absolute worst stage in the game. Not just is the stage fucking giant with gravity mechanics, but the hints fucking lie to you and are also backwards. I still can't beat this level on my own, I have to look it up due to how bullshit the hints are. Fuck this stage. Both of the main stories end with Sonic and Shadow having a fight in space, and it's fine. The concept is cool, but it's just really janky as hell. But now it's time to go to the final story. The final story is pretty dark for a Sonic game as we discover what happens to Gerald. After the raid on Ark, Gerald is arrested and is executed by an execution squad, and we see his last message before he is killed. As he explains that if the Ark was ever activated again, he would spawn the original Ultimate Life Form, which will cause the ship to fall into the Earth, which will destroy the planet. This leads into the final level where you have to go for a gauntlet of each character. This fucking sucks. It's not that bad, but once you die you have to go for the entire stage again. Doesn't help the level can be really frustrating at times. What caused me the most problem in this was Sonic's section, as the homing attack would just fuck up and send me off to a bottomless pit, which would lead to me losing my last life and having to do the entire stage again. Eventually I beat it and took on the final boss, which is the Bio Lizard, and it's a pretty cool fight, but I did get annoyed with it mostly due to the fucking homing attack not working, and because of that, the blue spears that the Bio Lizard shoots out at me would always hit me, which led me to retrying way too many times. Eventually Sonic and Shadow will go super form and take on the final phase of the boss while listening to Live and Learn, which was amazing. It's honestly a great way to end the game as it shows how cool the game can be, but also how janky it can be as well. It ends with Shadow sacrificing himself to save Sonic, and the game ends with Sonic saying,
Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
Overall, the game is really good, but due to the many problems I have with it, it leads to me not wanting to play the game that much, which sucks since I really want to love this game, but the problems make it too hard to truly love this game, sadly. Game for the Game Boy Advance. I really don't have too much to say about the Advance games as not much happens in them, so please don't mind that I'm only going to be talking about these games for like 1 minute. This is another game where I want to love it, but due to the second half of the game, it makes it impossible to like. The gameplay goes back to basic and is a blast to play. The game has incredible charm of cute sprite animation and great level design. The first half of the game had very fun levels that allow you to go fast, but also gave some challenging sections at times. The only problem is that the second half of the game includes a shitload of bottomless pits. It makes playing the game really annoying as I'm always falling down to a pit I can't see coming multiple times. The last level also fucking sucks. Not only is it a giant maze, but also has a time limit, so while I'm just trying to figure out where I'm at, I will fall and die due to not seeing a pit, but I can't slow down due to the fucking time limit. While the game does have incredible charm and can be very fun to play at times, the last half of the game just brings the entire experience down a lot, sadly. I don't have too much to say about this game as well. It does introduce Cream and Vanilla, who will go on to be a main part of the cast and once again get explored more in the comics. I'm telling you, most of the side characters get the same treatment. I will say that this game is much better than the last game, as it doesn't have as many bottomless pits as the first one does. Once again, the charm of this game is really good and I love it a lot. there was only one part that began to piss me off, and that's when I was learning what the trick jump was. At one point, you'd use a trick jump to continue, but there was only one problem. I didn't know that there was a trick jump, so I just keep retrying the same jump over and over until I looked up and realized there was a trick jump in the game. And that's when I realized I wasted half an hour on this, which was great. Besides that, the game was really fun, even the bosses weren't that bad, but that's mostly because Cream Controller shadowed them, which turned most of those bosses into jokes. I guess one last thing I didn't like was the boss rush at the end, but only because I don't like the concept of a boss rush. I just think that they're lazy ways to make a final boss harder, not much else to say. Besides that, the game was pretty good, I do recommend you play it. This game almost broke me. I heard a lot of good things about this game, so I was looking forward to playing this. Little did I know this was going to be the game that took me the longest to beat. It took me around 20 to 30 hours just to beat this thing. Every campaign would slowly begin to try and break me, even the one for babies, which I'll get into later. But before I get into the actual game, I want to talk about the animation, since it's pretty good. It does look a little dated, but I don't know, it just looks nice. It has that old 2000s animation charm that I like. This is probably the one thing I like the most about this game. I also want to talk about the biggest problem in this game, which is the controls. This is what breaks the game. The controls are just too slippery, which doesn't help in a game where almost every platform is above a bottomless pit. Sonic's just too slippery to control and also moves way too fast. The best way to describe it is that going down a narrow pathway is the scariest thing to do in the game. One wrong move and you're flying off. Knuckles has the same problem as most of attacks cause him to fly off the fucking platform, which has led to so many countless deaths. There's really nothing wrong with Tails' controls besides that switching from him sucks. If you happen to be in the air, Tails won't switch to another character, so when you stun an enemy and try to switch to Sonic to fish him off, it just won't switch, so by the time I land on the ground to switch the character, the enemy breaks out the stun, so I just get screwed. This all comes together to make playing this game a fucking nightmare. It also doesn't help that the game is very glitchy and tends to break a lot, but now let's get to the first story, which is Sonic's. The story is basically Eggman is up to something and it's up to Sonic to stop him. The stage's themes are really good. Seaside Hill is really fun, it's the most fun I had in this game. There's a futuristic city, a railway canyon, a forest of frogs that cause things to either grow or die, a haunted castle, and a fleet of Eggman ship, which is also a pretty fun level. While I do love the level's themes, it's just not enough to save the game for me. If anything, it makes me wish the game was more polished, because I would have loved to play this game a lot if it was just more polished, because it is really fun at times. But now let's go over the trouble I had in this story. Everything was good till I hit Railway Canyon. I could never get that many lives, so I always had 3 lives on me, which was great to deal with when I lost my life near a 10 to 15 minute level. All it would take was just one small mess up and I get sent off the map. Or even better, the game would just not work and I would fly off for no reason at all or just phase through things. What I got stuck at was where I had to use Tails to the target to progress. But my dumbass used Knuckles to do it, which obviously didn't work. I would just try over and over, but once I looked it up, I was actually able to pass it. That one was my fault, but that was just an omen about what I was about to deal with in this game. The frog level became my next problem as the game would just not work. Either I would fly off the stage from random bullshit or just fucking phase through the ground way too many times. The ghost level wasn't too bad till the end where the homing attack just didn't want to work and I fucked up. That was fun to deal with, but where I had the most trouble was the fucking robot fight at the end of the haunted house. No matter what I did, Knuckles just fly off the stage when I tried to hit an enemy. This goddamn part took me an hour to beat and it drove me insane. But eventually I was able to pass it and go on to the next level. The rest of the story wouldn't be that bad and it gave me no trouble, but there was only one problem. I had to play the same levels 3 more times! That's when I realized that this was just the beginning of my suffering. The next story I did was Chaotic Story. The story is simply that the Chaotic team is hired by a mysterious person and they're given a bunch of tasks to complete. The gameplay is a bit different in this one. Instead of reaching a goal, you have to complete whichever task they ask you to do. This story wasn't that bad to go through, thankfully. Besides the one haunted house stage that makes you blow a bunch of torches, I missed one in the beginning so I had to go for the entire level again. But the real hell came with the fucking robot fight at the end. It wasn't too bad to do, but there is a part where you have to use a cannon to kill robots, and it went as well as you think it could. I can never get the moving robots, and while I try to get it, I usually would just launch myself way too far and die. After another hour of this, I was able to beat it. The last thing I had a shitload of trouble with was the final boss. The final boss isn't that bad, but when I tried to follow him and jump off the main platform, I would just get hit by him, fall, and then die. This was complete bullshit. I had to wait to jump to prevent myself from getting hit by him, but once the boss gets pretty far away from you, it comes back and hits you. So even though I would wait for him to go away, the motherfucker would just come back and hit me when I try to jump across. So another hour later, I beat the damn thing and finally moved on to the Rose story. This story is simply about Amy hunting down Sonic, and that's really it. The story is basically easy mode for the game. You would think that this one would be the easiest one to get through, and you would be right. I was able to get through this one pretty easily. There was only one problem, which were the special stages. If I want to do the final story, I have to get all the chaos numbers, which can only be attained for the special stages. Only one problem. These special stages fucking suck. The controls are awful. I could never figure out the controls before getting stuck on the fucking ceiling. I was able to collect most of them without too much trouble, but the last one was out for blood. No matter how hard I tried, I would just start slowing down, clip it to the wall, and couldn't get the damn Chaos Emerald. The biggest problem is I had one shot to get it, and if I failed, I would have to do the entire level again. This shit drove me insane. I probably spent 2 hours just trying to beat the special stage, but no matter what I did, I would just get stuck and lose the special stage, or start screwing up on the main level that I just get pissed off and couldn't beat the level. Eventually, I just looked up a way to beat this, and that's when I learned that if I use Big, he would just break the game and go faster than the speed character for some reason. I got it on my first try. On to the Dark story. The story for this one is a lot more interesting. Due to how popular Shadow was in Adventure 2, they just bring him back to life in this one. The game will also introduce Omega, who will go on to be a fan favorite character. The story is about Shadow trying to remember who he is, and he doesn't remember what happened to him. Shadow decides to go with Rogue and Omega, who are also after Eggman for their own reasons. The story is basically just hard mode, so you already can tell how I felt about this one. But honestly, I didn't have too much problem with this one, mostly because I've begun to get used to all the bullshit this game throws. The only part that gave me a problem was the fucking robot fight. I swear, this fight almost fucking broke me. Once again, it took me an hour to beat. Fuck this fight. I eventually did beat the story, which means I can finally get on to the final story. The person who hired Team Chaotic was actually Eggman, who was captured and locked in the room, which meant the person who was actually orchestrating all of this was Metal Sonic, who was hinted at throughout the entire story. After this reveal, Metal Sonic reveals that he studied all of them, so he become powerful enough to beat Sonic, which leads to him turning into a giant metal kaiju called Metal Overlord. This was a cool fucking fight, and a great way to end the game. But sadly, it wasn't enough to make me like this game. The fight wasn't too bad to get through. The ice missiles were annoying, but the fight was just too cool for me to get mad at. I really wished I could like this game. There's a lot of good here, but I just can't overlook all the shit I had to go through. I do hope this game gets a remake so I can finally love the game for what I tried to do. This might be the worst advanced game. Compared to the last two games, this game's a fucking slog to get through. Almost every level is like 5 minutes long, and they're really not that challenging at all. The worst offender was the last level, Chaos Angel, which was pretty difficult to play for, but the stage lasts up to 6-7 minutes, which makes the stage drag on forever. Boss fights are pretty boring as well, but they did begin to get very annoying near the end of the game, especially the Chaos Angel boss. That one was complete shit. Another thing I didn't like about this game was the hub worlds, as they feel like they're a way to waste time and make the game longer. There are a few good things about this game. It has a mechanic where you can mix characters together so you can use different abilities to use depending on which character you use. It's a decent way to help mix up the gameplay a bit. The game will also introduce Ramal, who is based off the character from Emerald from Sonic Battles. I don't know much about this character since I haven't played Sonic Battle yet, but it was cool to see him be used as a constant villain in this one. At the end of the game, if you beat the true final boss, a cutscene shows Ramal being rebuilt for Cream, who will become her bodyguard from now on, but this only shows up in the comics afterwards. The story for this game isn't too bad, which is about Eggman tearing time and space apart, but it doesn't look any different from the last few advanced games, which makes the concept really underused. I really don't have too much else to say about this game as it just blends with the other ones, but it's somehow even worse than those games. This was the weirdest game I played yet. I remember seeing so many people make fun of this game back when I was younger, and to be honest, the game deserves it. It's a product of its time, and it tends to be really edgy all the time, but it just comes across as really silly. It's honestly a campy game. The game is about Black Doom invading Earth and tells Shadow that if he helps him, he can tell him where he comes from. The game has like 10 fucking endings. I'm only doing the neutral ending, which is just Shadow starting a robot uprising to slave humanity when he learns that he's a clone, which isn't true. The game just lies to the player. I'm telling you, this game really tries to be edgy. I'll definitely play all the endings later down the line, most likely when I combine all the videos into one video. I also want to say the animation is really good compared to the Heroes animation. It just looks a lot more polished and clean, and it's actually rendered. The game is much more different than most games, as the only way to go to other levels is that you have to complete tasks similar to the Team Chaotic missions from Heroes. This just makes the game a chore to get through, which is why I'm only doing one ending. The controls are somehow worse than Heroes. Shadow is so hard to control with how fast he goes, and turning him goes as well as you think it does. It's not too bad deal, but it should have been a lot more polished. The gun mechanics are actually pretty good and lock on the enemies really well, but the RPG sucks ass. Since it won't ever lock onto the enemies, even though I didn't get the final ending, I do know that Shadow is actually craved Black Doom's blood so he can lead his army. This info is really only going to come back up in Shadow Generations, but I just wanted to mention it before I go on. Since it's very important when we get to Shadow Generations, really though, this game is really only fun for the cutscenes and all the dumb shit that happens in the game, but besides that, the game is pretty mediocre. This was the first Sonic game we put on DS. Before I get into the game, I want to talk about the music. The music is fucking great. It attempts to be a mix of dubstep and remixes, and it actually works pretty well. I get why some people don't like it, but I love all of them, especially the Right There song. This game will also introduce Blaze the Cat, which is a fairly underused character that I wish was used a lot more. She does have a bigger presence in the comics, thankfully, which I can't wait to get to. The story for this game is that Blaze falls into Sonic Dimension to stop Eggman and Nega from destroying both hers and Sonic's dimension. Sonic and Blaze fights, but they make up and join forces to stop Eggman and Nega. I really want to say that I love this game, but I really fucking hate this game. This game throws so much bullshit death traps at you that it makes the game impossible to love. It makes going through the game a massive bitch when every 5 seconds there's a fucking bottomless pit. It also doesn't help that the boss fights suck. They make you wait so long just so you can hit them once. Blaze's fight was just such a headache. I didn't know how to hit her in the second half of the fight, it just felt like luck most of the time, but the final boss took the cake for the worst boss in this game. The game expects you to go for a bunch of shit in one phase, and then do that phase multiple times, but even more difficult each time until the fight finally ends. The boss took me a whole hour to beat, so yeah, fuck this boss. I really wish that I liked this game, but the game just gives me such a headache that makes it hard for me to enjoy it. I don't think that I need to introduce this game. It's very well known this game is beyond broken and dog shit. This was a game that turned Sonic into a joke. It would take until Sonic Frontiers for Sonic to finally be taken serious again. I won't go over the glitches and controls since they're well known. Yes, the game is held together with duct tape and breaks easily. The controls suck and Sonic is too slow, etc, and etc. I'm going to focus on the story since it isn't covered that much. The main story is about Sonic saving Elise, who if she cries will release the flames of disaster and cause the end of the world. It's not a bad story, it just feels mediocre on how they tell it. It could have been so much better. Sonic's campaign mostly focused on him saving Elise over and over again. The story wasn't that bad to beat besides any mock speed segment, those were complete bullshit. The only problem I had was the Silver fight. Everyone knows how awful this fight is, but I really want to get into why it fucking sucks. I think what happened was that they forgot to program a way for Sonic to escape Silver's grip, since in the fight against Sonic as Silver, Sonic is able to get out of your grip. So the only way to beat Silver is to wait until he says, and then you can hit him. Any other time, you'll get grabbed and most likely die from getting looped. Besides that, I didn't really mind levels that much. Besides Aqua Base, that one sucked ass, especially the ball segment. Just an average forgettable story, that's it. Silver's story is about him going back in time to prevent the end of the world so he can live a better life. Blaze is also in the story even though she was in another dimension from the last game, but then she dies at the end of this one from sacrificing herself to save the world. So it's basically a waste of her character. This is also Silver's first appearance, and I wish he was in more stuff since I really like his character, but sadly he barely shows up in the future games. I wish his gameplay was better though. It fucking sucked. He's slow as shit and it feels awful to use his powers. The worst part was the number of balls segment. You have to move the ball into a pit without pushing it too many times, and it just didn't want to work. And blow up for no reason at all, which was great. Eventually I did finish it and beat the story, and honestly it was better than Sonic, but not by much. Before we get to Shadow's story, let's go over the hub world missions. Before you can play some of the stages, you have to complete some missions. They all suck, they're going to be mind-numbing or really difficult at times. The worst one is the stealth mission for Silver, which I'm just going to show you. Amazing, but now let's get on to Shadow's story, the best part of the game. Shadow's gameplay is very similar to Sonic, but he actually gets to use vehicles which are a lot of fun to use. His story is mostly about him dealing with Mephiles, who is a pretty boring villain. The Sonic dub version of him was so much better.
That just makes you a beta cuck.
This is where the game gets way too complicated. I believe Mephiles' plans were to use Silver to kill Sonic so that Elise would cry and release Iblis, but that doesn't work, so he tries to convince Shadow to join him, saying that humanity would turn on him because of Iblis. But Shadow doesn't the fuck up and says the coolest line in the game.
If the world chooses to become my enemy, I will fight like I always have.
Also, the reason that Iblis is even inside of Elise is because an experiment that was performed by her father went wrong, which led to Iblis going inside Elise. Eventually, Mephiles would just go and kill Sonic himself, which leads to Elise crying and releasing Iblis. Mephiles and Iblis combine to make Solaris, which begins to start the end of the world. Yeah, this shit's way too complicated. It also doesn't make sense why Mephiles doesn't just kill Sonic in the first place. They never really explained that. While Shadow's story was the best of all of them, it's still not that good. I honestly did enjoy this campaign the most compared to the other ones, but mostly because I just like Shadow. But let's get this over and cover the final story. After Sonic dies and Solaris starts to cause the end of the world, everybody has to team up and collect all the Chaos Emeralds to revive Sonic. This leads to the final level, which fucking sucks. It's a gauntlet where you have to use every character to get their own Chaos Emerald. The idea isn't bad and the level design is actually pretty good. The problem are the fucking black holes. They're instant death, but that's not the problem. They fucking spawn right in front of you, or worse, they cause you to fuck up a jump and fall to your death, which happened way too many times. It didn't take too long to beat, but it slowly began to push my patience of how many times I had to retry that stage. Eventually I got all the Chaos Emeralds and Sonic was revived with True Love's Kiss. Yeah, I don't know why they thought that was a good idea, but let's move on to the final boss. It's actually a fun boss, the music is great, the game actually works, and it's just a cool fight. You need to switch between characters before your ring goes 0, and while you aren't using them, their rings start to go back up, which is my favorite version of the ring mechanic in Super Form, as you can actually strategize on how you want to use them, instead of just dumb luck if you can get any rings. Once the fight is over, a cutscene plays where you go back in time and blow out the flames of disaster, which basically means that this adventure never happened. And while the future is saved, it means Elise doesn't get to save Sonic and marry him.
I don't care what happens to the world.
It's not the best ending, but it could have been so much worse. Not gonna lie, I didn't mind playing this game that much. For how bad I heard this game was, I was actually genuinely surprised to find that it was pretty fun. But that's mostly because games somehow release in worse condition nowadays. I honestly wouldn't mind playing Project 06 when I get the chance. While this game is a piece of shit, it did have some good things in it. And also I hope it gets a remake so the game can show off how good it could have been. Another Sonic game for the DS. It's a sequel to the first Rush game, but it's actually a lot better than the first one, but it still has its own problems. The story is about Sonic and Tails getting sent to fucking Australia where they meet a young girl named Marie and also Blaze is there. And this time they have to take on robot pirates who are attempting to steal the Jewel Scepter. It's the most niche Sonic story yet, but it's still pretty decent. It does have the trope where they yell at the kid for doing dumb shit and the kid being upset goes on her own and then gets captured, but who really cares? We're here for the gameplay, which is really good. They actually attempt to make a game without putting a bottomless pit every 10 seconds. The stages are really fun to get through, and I'm pretty sure, for a reason I'll get into a little bit, but for now let's go over the boat mechanic shit. So instead of just going from level to level, you have to use a boat to get there, in which each one has its own minigame. The minigames on their own are fine, but the problem is that I'm not doing this on an actual DS. I know, shocker, but that makes playing these minigames a fucking nightmare. But the worst thing about this game is that they pad the shit out of this game. To unlock the new boats that give you access to the new levels, you have to collect a bunch of parts to make the boats, which you go and get by beating a level. So most of your time playing this game will be replaying the same levels over and over. Don't get me wrong, the levels are really great, but there could have been better ways to make the game longer. It all comes together to make the finale a fucking chore. In order to play the final level, you need to do at least 5 boat minigames, 3 special levels, and replay every single level at least once, and then do a puzzle. This just makes playing for the game a fucking chore. But there is one redeeming factor, which is that the bosses are so much better than the original. They are so much more dynamic in this one. Instead of getting 1 hit per wave of attacks, you can now hit them as many times as you want until the next wave starts. It makes these fights so much more fun and engaging. I'm impressed with how better this game was compared to the first, but I do get why it failed. It put way too much focus on the boat and collecting mechanics that led to people giving up on the game before it got good. But even then, it still was a pretty fun time. I didn't mention it beforehand, but one of the reasons that Sonic 06 came out the way it did was because of the fact that Sega decided to split their team up into 2, so that one half works on Sonic 06 and the other half works on this game, so that the Wii would have a Sonic game. Everyone knows about this, but what's really important, was it worth it? No, this game broke me. I don't think a game has ever pushed me this bad before. This game probably made my blood pressure spikes up a couple of times, also didn't help that I was sick at the time, which made the game so much worse. Also, the game actually hurt me. I'll explain why later, but for now let's go over the story. The story is about Sonic getting sucked into the Arabian Night book and has to help a genie girl take on an evil genie. I would like the story more if the game was good, but let's get to the real problem in this game, the motion controls. Now it's no secret that motion controls suck, but they somehow made the controls worse than most normal motion controls. So I'll show you how it works. The game is an auto-scroller, so the game is always pushing you forward. So how you control it, you turn the controller left and right to turn it backwards to make him slow down, which always activates out of nowhere for some fucking reason, and then you press the controller forward to use the homing attack. Another thing is that the jump button is the A button. One problem though, instead of just jumping, you fucking slide before you jump. So you fucking slam into the wall repetitively just trying to make a jump. It drove me insane. This all comes together to make the worst controls I've seen for a game. This was the reason I hate the game. The controls will always fucking fight me and led to me beating this 3-hour game in 10 hours from bullshit depth to bullshit depth. Let's go over the stages now, which are pretty good. They are well designed levels that would be fun to go through if the controls would just work, but there was one level that was actual ass, and it was Levitated Ruins. This level is awful. I don't know whose bright idea was to put a level that pushes you back in an auto-scroller game. I don't even need to explain why it sucks, just look at the footage, it speaks for itself. Another level that sucked was to beat the clock mission from Evil Foundry. This level is fucking awful. The level demanded the player to beat it very quickly, but the controls are so shit that I can never beat it. I eventually did beat it, but I was very close to giving up on the game because of this shit. It was absolute hell. Let's move on to the boss fights now. The boss fights are pretty weird. So on paper they are decent boss fights, but the problem is that the controls suck, which make the bosses a fucking headache. I'm telling you, this game would have been so much better if they didn't do this motion control shit. Let's go on to the genie boss, which fucking sucks. I must be stupid, because this fight took me 2 hours to beat. No matter what I did, I would just fucking die from some dumb shit. Didn't help that you had to hit him like 30 times to beat him. But the real kicker is the standoff shit. No matter what I did, it wouldn't work. I watched countless videos to find a way to beat this bitch and figure out how to do the standoff, but no matter what I did, I would just not hit him, even if I think I did it perfectly. It just wouldn't work, but somehow I did beat this guy and probably lost a few years of my life because of this, but we're still not done yet. There is a true final boss to get the final ending, and this was the one that actually hurt me. By the time I got here, I was done and wanted this shit to be done with. So it was great that the final boss also sucked ass. You have to shake the remote as fast as you can to raise your power meter while dodging shit. Then shake it again to deflect the giant orb, then you have to shake it even more to do damage to the boss. This shit fucked my arm up. While I was shaking my arm like there was no tomorrow, I felt 2 pops in my arms. I don't know what it was, but my arm was sore for like a week, so yeah, fuck this boss. Best part, I forgot to record this. So here's a little footage I have left. Also a reminder that I was sick, so while the cool ending was playing, I was just dying in my chair as I was happy that this shit was finally over. I know that there are fans for this game, so if you like it, good for you. I'm glad you guys like this game, but this game put me through so much pain and bullshit that even though yes, there are worse Sonic games, this won't be the worst Sonic games in my eyes, and I will never play this game ever again. Let's move on now. I actually remember playing the Wii version of this game when I was younger, and I don't remember what happened, but I just couldn't jump over something, so I put it down and never played it again. I was a really stupid kid. But now it's time to finally play this game and see if I like it. The story is pretty wild as Eggman is able to stop Sonic and take the energy out of the Chaos Emeralds, which caused the Earth to fall apart and release Dark Gaia. Sonic joins a weird bat thing called Chip who has amnesia, and they decide to go on a journey together to restore the Chaos Emeralds and save the world. It's a really good story. It's probably my favorite thing about this game. I always heard bad things about the game, so it's refreshing to learn that the Sonic stages are pretty good actually. Sonic is probably as fast as yet, and it feels exhilarating to play. My favorite level is Rooftop Run, which is so much fun, but we should talk about the other half of the game, which are the Werehog stages, which are pretty decent. They attempt to do the God of War style fighting, which is pretty fun at times, but if anything it can get pretty boring, but that's it. This is a pretty fun game. I can't see what ruined the game at all though. Oh yeah, the fucking medal system. I don't know why I thought they needed to add this, but this shit almost ruined the game for me. So to be able to go to other levels, you need to collect enough medals to unlock them, which isn't too bad of an idea, but the problem is that they require you to collect way too many of them. You need at least 100 moon medals and 140 sub medals to be able to beat the game, which is way too much. It basically requires you to scour the levels to find these damn things, which aren't that hidden, which does help, but it could have lowered the amount you need to get. I will say that it made the Werehog stages more engaging, so it's not that bad. There is one bad level though, and it's the nighttime Sharma stage. This level is basically just fighting the same waves of enemies over and over and over. It also has a part where if you go up a flight of stairs, you get stuck into an endless round of enemies. Luckily I was able to beat it, just to find that there is nothing up there. Fucking great. Besides that, most levels were really good. The bosses were also pretty fun. They were easy to beat, but they did have some fun spectacle to it. There were some extra stages where some were fun, some were shit, but there was one that took me an hour to beat. It was a gauntlet of slow moving platforms, near impossible jumps, it just went on for way too long. Let's talk about the most infamous level in the game, Eggman Land. I fucking love this level. It was very challenging but incredibly fair, unlike most difficult Sonic levels. The only part I hated was the end where the 2 giant enemies would just stunlock me, the fucking assholes, but besides that, this was a well balanced level. Honestly can't wait to play it again, but let's go on to the final level, which is just fucking wild. You start off with a pretty easy fight with Eggman, but then you take on Dark Gaia in super form, but then Chip turns out to be God, fucking activates a giant temple robot to fight Gaia. It's incredibly fun to play and lets the game go out on a bang. Sadly though, it ends with Chip sacrificing himself to save Sonic, and it's actually quite touching. I was genuinely surprised by how much I love this game. I just wish they didn't rely on the medal system so much, but what can you do? It's still an amazing game that I'm probably gonna play again. Not gonna lie, after Secret Rings, I was genuinely worried about this game. I wasn't ready to jump into another motion control nightmare. So I played it, and honestly, this game is really fucking fun to play. The story is similar to Secret Ring, as Sonic is sucked into another storybook and has to fight Knights of the Round Table and King Arthur to save the kingdom. Let's just get into the controls, which are so much better, as they use a nunchuck to control Sonic, which means playing the game is actually fun. The levels are also really fun and well designed. The only problem is that the tutorial goes on for like 1/4 of the game. They could have shortened that shit down a lot. The bosses were pretty shit. I didn't know what I was supposed to do during them, but by the time I started to figure it out, I already beat them, so it didn't take too much away from the experience. My favorite thing about this game was the dynamic between Sonic and his fucking sword. This might be my favorite version of Sonic, as he's such a smartass and I love it.
You see, he thinks so too.
Well, it's your fault. You're a sad excuse for a teacher.
There is actually a good twist in this game, as the mage who summoned you actually wants to take over the world when you beat King Arthur, as she knows the age of the knights will come to the end, and she wants to forcibly keep time from moving forward, and Sonic gives a nice response to it.
Every world has its end. I know that's kind of sad, but
That's why we gotta live life to the fullest in the time we have.
It's a pretty cool twist, but at least the most annoying levels in the game, where you have to go through these incredibly difficult stages on a fucking time limit. Levels were already annoying, but adding a time limit just makes these levels almost unplayable. Wish they didn't put a fucking timer in it, but oh well, the dragon boss also sucks. But only because it sends you to the very beginning of the level, which just makes this boss fight really tedious to fight. The final boss fight is so much better than the original, as the boss didn't try to give me a fucking hernia. It's a lot more fun and uses the motion controls a lot better than Secret Ring did. You even get a nice Good Night outfit. Honestly, I was really surprised how good this game was. If you haven't tried this one out, go try it out for yourself. It's honestly a hidden gem in this series. Sonic Colors was originally only a Wii game, but not long ago we got a remaster port for the game, but sadly from what I've heard, it's a shitty port with a bad remix soundtrack, somehow worse graphics, and glitches galore. Luckily, most of this was fixed by the time I played it, but I just wanted to mention it. The story for this one's pretty simple. Eggman creates a giant amusement park in space using the Wisp power as he plans to use that power to mind control people. This doesn't really come back at all, but I really enjoy the concept a lot as it creates a lot of fun set pieces to go through. The only thing I hate about the story was how awful the dialogue is. Unleash introduced Orbot, who has a decent comedy relief, but in this game they also introduced Cubot, who's also another comedy relief character. These two would join Eggman as sidekicks from now on. The reason I bring this up is because they attempt to make jokes non-stop and it fucking sucks.
Baldy nose hair! That's the best thing I've heard all day!
It's mostly just annoying quips and weird voices. Now I know Sonic is known for saying one-liners, but this is way too much. The levels are incredibly fun but are really short. This is most likely due to the Wii's capability. But it doesn't matter, these levels are really fun to go through. I just wish there weren't that many 2D segments in the game. Planet Wisp was great and had really good music, Sweet Mountains and Asteroid Coast were really fun as well. This game also introduces Wisp power, which is surprisingly underused in this game, which is a shame since they are really fun to use to get around stages. The only thing I hate about this game was terminal velocity, which isn't even the game's fault. At one point in this level you have to dodge lasers off screen, but due to the remaster taking a lot of the color away, I can't tell where the laser is supposed to come from, and because of that I get killed over and over and over, which leads to me replaying the level way too many times than I wanted to. I don't have too much else to say about this game, it's just a simple fun time, which is all I can ask for from a Sonic game. This game's a fucking joke. I'm not gonna waste my time trying to introduce this one. Second one to make a game to appease people who weren't even fans of the game, who were complaining that Sonic had way too many friends, so they took all his friends out and left us with a soulless cash grab. This game's a mess. I mean, just look at it. Shitty fan games put more effort in this. I mean, just look at the intro and the horrible tweening animation. It also turns out this was supposed to be a fucking phone game, and the reason we know why is due to them not removing the line from the fucking casino level. I'm not joking. Also, they decided to use almost every worst level in Sonic history as inspiration. They decided to use Labyrinth Zone and Casino Night as their inspiration. They also reused every boss from the other games besides like one. The final boss is awful. You have to do a boss rush and take on a shittier version of the Death Egg robot. This fight dragged on for way too long and is incredibly annoying to fight in the second phase. Sorry I'm not spending too much time on this one, but really all there is to say is the game was rushed for people who weren't even going to play it in the first place. And also I really don't want to give this game any more attention than it deserves. This was a game to get me to Sonic, and it's not a real big surprise why. This might be the one of the best Sonic games ever made, and it's an amazing advertisement. It made me think that Sonic 06 was going to be fun. This game's story is pretty bare bones. A time monster comes in and fucks shit up, and now Sonic has to restore time to save his friends. It's really just an excuse to play these levels. Almost every level in this game is great. Green Hill was fun, Chemical Plant was amazing, and Sky Sanctuary was okay. Not awful, but doesn't hold a candle to the original at all. It just has too many bottomless pits and also doesn't really capture the magic of the original. Speed Highway is amazing, but the 2D version of the level is kinda mid. That's because most of the level is just jumping off the platforms, which does get really annoying. City Escape is great as usual. Seaside Hill was really good. I really got to enjoy this level once I learned about the top route, which makes the levels 20 times as fun compared to the bottom route. Crisis City is obviously better than the original one. I don't think I need to explain why. Rooftop Run was pretty mediocre. It's not bad and can be quite fun at times, but it's somehow less exhilarating than the original. And at least the level just being kinda decent at best. Planet Wisp was pretty bad. I think that they tried way too hard to make this one difficult instead of attempting to show off what made the original level so good that it kinda backfires into making the level into a long and frustrating experience. They also attempt to show off some of the Wisp powers, which can be fun to use, but due to the game attempting to teach player how they work, the level begins to focus only on the Wisp instead of any set pieces from the original game. But even then, that's just me nitpicking this level. The only really annoying part of this game were the challenges, in which you have to do 3 of them to move on. At first I hated these, but honestly while I was making this video I attempted to do 100% this game, and honestly besides a few of them, most were amazing levels. I recommend trying some of these out, because some of them are actually quite fun. The rival fights were also pretty fun as well. Metal Sonic is a little annoying to fight due to how hard it is to dodge things while running away from falling platforms, but it wasn't that bad. The bosses were also pretty good. That fake robot and chaos were great. Egg Dragoon is surprisingly difficult compared to the original, and honestly, I like it more than the original for that. The final boss though sucks ass. It's not really fun at all and just really janky. It's the only thing I don't look forward to when I play this game a lot, which kinda sucks. I do like the reveal where it turns out both future and past Eggman were working together to stop Sonic, and also like Shadow coming in saying,
On your feet.
it'll make sense when we get to Shadow Generations. Overall, this was an amazing game, and if you're interested in trying out Sonic, this will be the best one to try. This one's actually not that bad. It's not good per se, but it's such an improvement from the last one. First thing, the game was actually designed to be an actual game and not a phone game, so we're already improving. The graphics aren't that much better, but honestly the levels were a lot more fun to play through. Tails joins Sonic in this game and gives the player new moves to utilize, which makes the game so much more engaging to go through. The levels are also a lot more original and not reusing old ideas. They're still generic as hell, but it's the thought that counts. Even the bosses are a lot better. They're honestly the best thing about this game. The Plant Monster and the Giant Robot are my favorite fights in the game. It also has a version of Sky Chase in this game, which honestly sucks. It goes on for way too long. It even has a boss fight in it, which I didn't even realize till like late into the fight. Not my proudest moment. The final level is also pretty good. The camera turns as you explore the level, which makes for a fun experience. The final boss is also surprisingly good. The spinning wheel gimmick is actually really well done, and it's honestly pretty challenging. It was a nice way to finish off the game. While this game is nowhere near perfect, it was a surprisingly nice time. But due to the negative reception of these games, episode 3 was cancelled. While it does suck that that happened right when they were finding their footing, it did need to happen. The game was only pushed to people who wouldn't even play these games in the first place, so it was better to end it, since the games were never going to make that much money in the first place. But it was a fun time though. So for this game in Sonic Boom, I need to get a Wii U so I can be able to play it, but I just could not get one at all. I bought one on eBay, but fucking UPS lost it. Instead of refunding me, eBay made me wait like 40 fucking days just to get a chance to do it, as they wouldn't give me a refund until their investigation was over, for some reason. I wanted this video out in early January, but now because of this shit, I'm most likely not getting this out till like late February, which is great. So after I recorded this, my computer went and fucking died. So because of that, I was delayed for like 2 months, so now the video is finally coming out in May. Fuck me. But now onto the game. It's no secret that this game took a lot of inspiration from Mario Galaxy without understanding what made that game actually good. All it does is make this game really generic, and though the story also isn't that much better either. Sonic and Tails finds a lot of sex as they were chasing Eggman, but it turns out Eggman was controlling the Deadly Six, basically Mario villains, to create a machine to drain the planet of its energy. Sonic screws up and makes Eggman lose control of the Deadly Six, and now they have to team up to stop him from destroying the world. The Deadly Six aren't that bad, but they are definitely annoying, but people completely overdramatize how bad they actually are. The real problem with the story is that everybody's just so fucking miserable. Sonic is really annoying here and is constantly being a jackass. But Tails is the worst though. He's a complete jackass and gets pissed with Sonic out of nowhere for wanting to team up with Eggman. But Eggman explains to them that they need him to shut the machine down, and he's the only one who can do it. It's just really miserable to watch them bicker non-stop. The levels aren't that much better either. They're just generic Mario themed levels, and they're just so boring to play through. I really don't have much else to say about these levels, as they just kind of blend together in my head. The controls also suck. They have a bunch of new moves that you can use, which are fun to use at times, but they all map to the same button. They aren't too awful to figure out, but they could have been so much better if they just mapped them to different buttons. The bosses were also really bad in this one. I know that most boss fights in this franchise aren't that difficult, but these fights are genuinely babyish. Some of these fights end me before I can even recognize what their attacks are. I can't even think of a fight that gave me any trouble. They also do a boss rush, which is always fun. It ends with Eggman betraying them, which leads to a halfway decent fight with him. And it all comes to an end with Eggman falling to his death in a fucking volcano. Overall, this game attempted to play it safe, but it backfired real hard. There isn't anything too awfully bad in this game, just a really boring and tedious time, and was not worth the fucking 40-day wait. This is a pretty infamous game, and it's not as well known as Sonic 06, but that's because no one had any hope of this game at all. Sega wanted to make a spin-off series that went along with the mainline games, but those plans went up in flames with this game release. It was a complete shit show. You thought Sonic 06 had glitches? Oh boy, this game took the cake for that. Even with all the updates, the game still barely runs without having any problems. Frame rate drops, horrendous pop-ups, broken audio, controls not working, and the game having a fucking stroke. The story for this one is that Sonic and his friends release Lyric, who wants to awaken his giant robot army to take over the world. Sounds simple, right? They somehow made this very simple story incredibly complicated for no reason. I had no idea what was going on while I was playing this. They bring time travel into it for some reason, which gets dropped real quickly. Shadow shows up for no reason and acts like a dick and just disappears till the end of the game. There's also a point in the game where Sonic becomes an asshole out of nowhere who just seems to be leftovers from when the game was supposed to be an origin story for him.
That was incredible! Did you see us in action?
Yeah, you guys were a great supporting cast, thanks. What?
I think we all contributed.
Oh, sure. I'm just saying I probably contributed a bit more.
Unbelievable.
Yes, I was, thank you.
This all comes together to make a disjointed mess that turns a simple story into a complete joke. The game itself isn't really too bad to play and levels are actually pretty okay. It starts off as an auto run section, a fighting game, a puzzle game, and then back to an auto run segment. It's not that bad to play at all. If anything, the game is just really boring. Puzzles aren't that difficult and the fighting is just mindless button mashing. The auto run segments are kind of fun, but are just broken sadly. The game also has a hub world, which also sucks. It's just really boring and lifeless, and just feels like padding. I would just go straight to the next level and spend as little time as I could in these hub worlds. The bosses also suck. They are incredibly easy and can be forgettable, but some of them were kinda cool to look at, so I'll give them that. The final boss was pretty decent. It wasn't nothing special, but they utilized each character's ability, which yes, is the bare minimum, but at least they didn't take the bullshit difficulty route. Really though, this game's just a mess. I will say it wasn't that bad to play through, but there's nothing in this game that's done well. It makes sense why this was a massive failure and led to the swift quick death of the Sonic Boom series. This is the first of 2 3DS games that were made for Sonic Boom, and they are actually pretty good. Not masterpieces, but are surprisingly fun to play through. I will say that Shadow Crystal was my least favorite, but mostly because of one reason, but we'll get into that a little bit later. For now, let's go over the story. The story is pretty simple. Lyric uses a mind control device to kidnap Amy so he can find the pieces of the Shadow Crystal so he can rid the world, and also uses it to control Shadow as well. It's a good story for a 3DS game, but nothing really interesting happens in it. Those on the other hand are pretty decent, but they're just way too fucking long. They take like 10 minutes to get through and are really boring, but they can be pretty fun sometimes. The biggest problem with this game for me is that you have to collect a bunch of shit to get enough medals so you can progress with the game. When I first learned of this, I was pretty pissed off, since after Unleashed I didn't want to deal with any goddamn medal system again, but honestly it's not that bad. Most of the paths actually connect to each other, which makes playing it pretty fun at times. The only problem is that when they cite it at like 6 paths, which means if you pick the wrong one, you're fucked and you have to reset the level. I was honestly surprised how fun it was to collect everything, but even then I'm still not a big fan of collecting stuff like this. I do love collectathons, but when they are forced into a game, it just becomes annoying to deal with. The comedy in this game kinda sucks. I think the game was released before the Sonic Boom show was made because Sonic Boom can be really funny at times, so I'm surprised of how not funny the jokes were in this one. One thing I like was how each character has their own unique moves that can progress through the level in their own different ways. It helps keep the game from getting too repetitive. This game has 2 types of boss fights, and one of them is a worm boss. And there's like 7 versions of this boss, which is like way too many of them. It's basically just an auto run segment where you have to dodge obstacles till you get to the end. They're pretty fun to play through, but dear god, there is no reason to have 7 fights since they're the exact same. The second type of boss fights are the races, which are fine. The game wasn't really made for speedrunning, which makes going for these races annoying due to how many times I get stuck on things, but it wasn't that bad honestly. The final boss is pretty mediocre. It's a combination of a race and dodging waves of attacks till the next part of the race begins. It went on for way too long and was just boring to play through, which fits well with how I feel about this game. It's a boring game that goes on for way too long, but I won't pretend that I didn't have fun with it sometimes. This was the second game made for Sonic Boom, and honestly it's a pretty great game. The story for this one's that a bunch of fissures are starting to pop up which could cause the end of the world, and when Sonic attempts to deal with it, he gets fire and ice powers. As they attempt to stop all the fissures, a robot called Defect follows them and tries to stop them from closing all of them. The story is fine, nothing too special about it, just an excuse to use fire and ice powers. I will say this was the only game to have Eggman as the main villain, as he was always pushed aside heavily for Lyric in the last 2 games. Let's move on to the game now, and yeah, they reused a lot of assets. It's very obvious that they did this, but it's really not that big of a deal. I just wanted to mention it because it's really obvious to tell. The new powers in the games are pretty cool, but sadly never get really expanded upon. It's just fire melts ice and ice freezes water. And honestly, it doesn't take that much away from the game, and it can be pretty fun to use at times. The game throws away the collecting aspect from the last game and focuses on racing for the level, which is honestly for the better. It made this game much more enjoyable for me. I enjoy racing for these levels and using the fire and ice powers. Sure, it's pretty easy, but I'll take an easy game over an annoying one. Another thing in the game are the mandatory races against Eggman in every world. These races are actually pretty fun compared to the last game. The only thing I didn't like about them is that you don't really get a choice on when you do them. The second you touch the level, Eggman just takes you straight to the race without you even starting the level, which can get really annoying. Another thing I didn't like is that the races don't have good difficulty progression. One race will be really difficult and the next one will be incredibly easy, which can be really jarring at times. But besides that, the races are really good and can be incredibly fun to blast through. Even the boss fights are fun. You get to play as Sonic and one of his friends and team up together to take on a boss. For the first half of the fight, you get to play as Sonic, but then the second half, you get to play as one of his friends, in which you get to use their special ability to beat the boss. And they're all great besides the spider one. That one sucked ass. Especially the Knuckles section. You have to make circles around the bombs to hit the boss while enemies try to hit you. And the reason it sucks is because the only way to kill the enemies is to circle around them, but they don't stand still, so it makes trying to dodge or kill them a fucking nightmare. One last thing I want to talk about is the comedy, which is so much better than the last game. The comedy lines of how good it was in the TV show, and it shows in this game. I mean, they make a goddamn insurance joke at the end of the game.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go review my insurance policy and see if it covers active bot.
Even with insurance, the deductible's gonna kill him. That's how they get you.
This was a really fun game to play through, and honestly if you haven't tried it, you should, especially if you're a fan of the show. This game is amazing. Everyone's gone on and explained how great this game is, so I won't spend too much time on this one. It wasn't even a game that was fully made by Sega, it was created by a fan and made a bunch of fan games. It's pretty crazy that all of this was done by a fan. I can't wait to play some of these fan games that this guy created. I'll definitely go over them in a later video. Most of the levels in this game are just remakes of classic levels, which are honestly better than Sonic Generation classic levels. They're all amazing, but the original levels in these games are fucking insane. Studiopolis, Mirage Saloon, and Press Garden are all amazing. They also have banger music, which I should just let you listen to. The bosses are also really fun as well. I think my favorite one was Press Garden's final boss. It's such a fun and engaging fight as you attempt to dodge his swords and attempt to stun him so you can get hits on him. It's an amazing game, but sadly there was one thing that kept me from liking this game, which was the fucking live system. This thing drove me insane. I sucked at doing the special stages, so I didn't get that many lives, but because of this, I would get to the final boss of a stage, I would die trying to learn it, and then lose all my lives and get sent back to the beginning of the fucking stage. This shit pissed me off a lot, but there are two big offenders to this, the spider boss and the giant metal Sonic boss. The spider boss can be pretty difficult at times, so I would get sent back to the very beginning of the stage way too many times. Didn't help that I didn't like Flying Barry that much, but the metal Sonic one fucking broke me. I got so fed up with that asshole that I attempted to unlock debug mode to beat the boss, which took me like 30 minutes to figure out, but then I felt guilty about it and I never used it, but I did try to, which just shows how annoying this game can be at times. This made the final level a nightmare, as it was a long and annoying level and I was so terrified of getting sent all the way back. It made the final boss so fucking intense, which made me like it a lot honestly. It fucking jump started my goddamn Dark Souls boss reaction time. It's a small thing, but it was enough to make me not want to play the game again. Unless I install a mod that removes the live system. But really, this is seriously only a me problem, so really just try it out for yourself. It's an amazing game and I hope that the creator makes a sequel to it. This was actually my first Sonic game that I ever played fully. I got it for free from PS Plus and I decided to play it to see how bad it could be, but it turns out that I liked it. I didn't think it was amazing, but it was pretty fun at times. So I wonder how I would feel about this game after playing all these games and if my opinion would change on it. So what do I think of the game now? I understand why people hate this game, but I still think that this game is still overhated as fuck. I have seen so many videos saying this game's a fucking war crime and even saying that Sonic 06 was a better game. I mean, come on. I get that this game has played a lot of people and wasted a good concept, but this game is bad at worst and mediocre at best. It is definitely not the worst Sonic game, but there are so many problems in this game though. One reason this game is hated is because of how bad the story is. The story is about Eggman being Sonic and taking over the world of Infinite, who has the ability to change reality, and because of this they were able to make all of Sonic's villains show up for the game. This should have been amazing, but sadly it does suck. They want to tell us an incredibly dark story, but at the same time keep telling non-stop jokes. They say Sonic's being tortured, but when we finally see him, he's just cracking jokes.
Sounds like the party started. Want to let me go and join in? No? Of course not. You hate fun.
They also character assassinate Tails, who turns into a bitch in this game. After playing all these games, I can easily tell you Tails wouldn't just let himself get jumped and cry like a bitch. Especially since it's Chaos, who Tails has been a stronger version of before. Shadow's also in the game, but sadly he's just a one-note character in this, but he's honestly been like that for a while, which does suck. But it's about the same for all the characters in this game. They're all one note. It just sucks that they wasted such a cool concept. The levels are much better, they're incredibly short and give no challenge. I don't mind them that much as they can be pretty fun, but I'd be lying to myself if I said that they were good. The music is pretty good. I know some people don't like it, but I dig it. Aqua Road, Fading Road, and Arsenal Pyramid are really good, and Fist Bump is just amazing. They're all honestly pretty good. The game also has an avatar creator, so now your Sonic OC can finally be real. But one problem though, it fucking sucks as well. There's not that much customization to it, so it makes the avatar creator really bare bones, so I guess you'll never really be able to make your OC come to life. This all comes together to make a weird mess. A game that wants to be dark, but is incredibly easy and cracks jokes non-stop. I still like this game, mostly because it was my first game, but yeah, I completely do get why this game is pretty hated. But I do think people can be very overdramatic with how bad the game is though. This was the first big Sonic the Hedgehog movie besides the one OVA one, which I will go over in the next video, and it all started horribly. The original design for Sonic was god-awful. Many reaction videos were made to the first trailer and people were pissed and they let Sega know, but Sega actually listened and changed the design, which is a W from them. So how good was the actual movie? It was surprisingly decent, nothing great, but it does its job. It's about Sonic trying to find his ring so he can go to a different world to escape Dr. Eggman as he chases him down. It is an average cartoon character in the real world movie, but it's done really well. Ben Schwartz does a great job as Sonic. He's able to give the perfect energy to the role and is actually able to make Sonic emotional at times. Jim Carrey plays Eggman in this and he's great. He doesn't go all out in this one though, sadly. He's actually pretty restrained compared to the future movies. The human characters are pretty good honestly. James Marsden does a good job, but I wish the movie would have focused on Sonic more, but they don't take away that much from the movie. I will say I did like the finale with Eggman chasing Sonic throughout the city. It was a pretty cool scene. The only thing I hated in this was the fart jokes and Baby Sonic. He just looks so goddamn creepy. Overall, it's just a generic kids film, but can be pretty fun at times and was definitely worth the watch. I sadly did not like this movie, even though I do love the direction of this one more. Instead of just being a generic kids movie, it attempts to use elements from the game and turns into an actual video game movie. The story for this one's based off of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, as it only uses some elements from the story, so it's mostly about Knuckles and Eggman looking for the Master Emerald as Sonic and Tails tries to beat them to it. The biggest problem with this movie is the pacing. Not much happens in the movie, but it drags hard. It doesn't help that they put pace-breaking scenes that could have been removed. The dancing scene was long and annoying, the wedding scene wasn't that bad, but just wasted so much time. I will say that Jim Carrey's a lot more funnier in this one. He delivers a lot of good jokes and is really starting to get into his role. Knuckles is introduced as the main antagonist in this one and he's so fucking cool. They really show how powerful Knuckles can be and this might be the best version of him in the entire franchise honestly. He's the highlight of the movie for me.
You think these machines are a match for me? I will shatter them like the bones from a fallen... Oh. They are stairs.
Tails is also introduced in this, but he's not that good in this one sadly. They attempt to build a relationship between Sonic and Tails, which does lead to some sweet moments, but most of the time Tails just says,
Only Sonic the Hedgehog needs rescuing this much.
It gets really annoying quick, and just a symptom of him being great as a fanboy that glazes Sonic instead of being a younger brother that's inspired by Sonic. It leads to Tails being really annoying to listen to. It also sucks that he could have spent more time on building a better relationship between those two if the screen time wasn't wasted on the fucking wedding scene. I will say the finale is pretty good, the action was great and the pacing actually picks up. Eggman steals the Master Emerald and builds a giant death egg robot to destroy the world, which leads to Sonic and Tails teaming up with Knuckles to stop him. The best part of the finale is Sonic turning to Super Sonic and he's so fucking cool to watch him as he destroys a giant robot. The best part is when he watches Eggman presumably die.
Okay, we're not friends.
He does come back in the next one, but they do mention that they think he died in the third one, which is fucking wild. I really wished I could have liked this movie more, but the pacing kills it for me. It is a better movie than the first, but personally it just didn't do anything for me sadly. After the failure of Sonic Forces, Sega went to a new direction for the next game, which is an open world game. It honestly made sense. You can make a giant map for Sonic to run through as you go for many different levels that are on the map. But for Frontiers, it just went for the basic idea. Sonic runs around and collects things that will eventually give you access to a boss fight, and then you go to the next area, rinse and repeat. Before we get into the game, let's cover the story. Sonic and his friends investigate a mysterious signal, but suddenly something goes wrong, and all of his friends are now trapped in a digital space. And it's up to Sonic to figure out what's going on and save his friends. As you explore the islands, a mysterious girl tells him to leave, as if he continues to try and free his friends, he will doom them all. This story tends to be a lot more mature as each friend talks to Sonic about their faults. We'll go over the characters eventually, but for now let's go over how the game works. At the end of each island there is a boss fight, and to get to the boss fight you need the Chaos Emeralds, but you need to get the Vault Keys to unlock them. To get the Vault Keys you need to beat the Cyber Stages. To access the Cyber Stages you need to get the Portal Keys, which you can only get for beating the mini bosses around the area. But also half the Chaos Emeralds are only unlocked by talking to one of Sonic's friends and doing a minigame to get it. And to do that you need to collect a shitload of memory tokens. You got all that? This does give the player the ability to choose what they want to do, and it does make the game kinda fun, but that's mostly due to your brain just turning off as you run around and do this shit. I decided to 100% the game so I can get every piece of information about this game, but honestly after doing it, there isn't anything special you get for doing this, so it's kinda just a waste of time. If anything, it shows how bare bones the game actually is. I'm not gonna lie, this game's gonna age horribly as time goes on. This game isn't that very deep and it's very noticeable, as the more you play, the more you realize how repetitive it is, but realize how much of the game is just collecting shit. There are parts of the game where you do a semi-level while getting chased by a Titan, which are pretty fun because it's an actual level. But besides that, the cyber stages and the bosses, there's not much else to do in this game. Yeah, it can be fun collecting things, but this level is meant for like side content, not the actual main game. This just leaves me unsatisfied after finishing the game. The open world idea does work, but there needs to be more than just collecting shit. There are 5 islands, but they don't really have an identity besides different settings. They're honestly blend together in my head, which just makes the game more bare bones to me. The best thing about this game though are the cutscenes, so let's go over each character's story. Amy's story is about her helping a Coco confess his love to another Coco, but once they reunite, they both die. This affects Amy and makes her want to be more independent from Sonic.
When this is over, I want to share that love with the world. Even though it may take us far apart.
Amy's story is fine. I think they were trying to address how Amy has been betrayed in the past, but never really goes that deep into it and overlooks the good quality of her character from the past. Knuckles' story focuses on him helping an army of Coco set up their defenses, but this season Knuckles dealing with the fact that he's the last of his species, which is done really well and is honestly a pretty good story. The best story though is Tails, and they attempt to address his moment in Forces and how he feels like a burden to Sonic, and it's honestly done really well, and it's nice to see him address what happened to Tails in Forces.
Whenever there's a crisis, I'm either running away or standing on the sidelines. You're always rescuing me when all I do is follow you around.
Eggman is also here, but he's just stuck in cyberspace for most of the game. You have to collect egg memos to learn more about him, which are pretty good. It explains that Sage is actually an AI made by him and goes into how he feels about being a father to her.
I never really knew my cousin Maria. Everyone spoke of her like she was very special. All that love for someone who was gone when I was right there. But I have to wonder, back then, was she anything like Sage is now? Who says I can't create life, huh? Just a bunch of proteins pumping together, anyone can do that. A true genius does it with code and electrons. And if I did create life, she would be brilliant and loyal and perfectly effective. And you know why? Because her dad is a genius, that's why.
Which was nice to see Eggman get some character development. Sage herself was fine. Her reasoning for not telling Sonic what was happening is pretty contrived, but it's really just a nitpick. She's just not my favorite character. The highlight of this game for me were the boss fights. While they are pretty easy and are more of spectacles, I prefer this type of supersonic fight than the ones that attempt to be bullshit difficult. I do wish that they were a little more challenging since I was so overpowered from playing the game that I fucking slaughtered the final boss. The rock songs are also great as well. I have listened to them way too many times. I might have a problem. Let's now go over the Cypher stages, which are substitutes for actual levels. I was actually able to S-rank them all, but they were pretty easy to S-rank, so it wasn't that much of an achievement besides 1-2. That stage can go burn in the fucking fire. These stages are sadly pretty mediocre. They reuse way too many level designs from older games and are pretty unoriginal. I mean, really, what can you say about stage 3-5? I don't even remember what happened in that stage, and joke's on you, the footage I'm using isn't even from that stage. Anyone would have even known if I didn't say it, which is the biggest problem. These just feel like half-assed attempts to add in Sonic levels, which sucks because I really do love the cyber level thing, but they never really go deep into it. One more thing I want to go over though is the final boss, which story-wise is pretty fucking cool. The last island builds up how terrifying this thing is, and it looks like a giant planet giving off cosmic horror feels, which got me excited, but just a cutscene, or if you did the hard mode, you got a hard minigame, which was actually really fun. The music and dialogue helps make the fight amazing.
You have fought machines and gods. They were mighty. They were finite. I am infinite. I am nothing.
I almost did beat the fight, but the lasers kept messing me up so I didn't get to beat it. Even though I love the concept, it still sucks that the fight is just a minigame. You can tell they ran out of time for it, as they attempt to redeem the ending with the Final Horizon DLC, in which I also didn't like. I tried to like it and get into it, but I just could not, which sucks because from what I heard, the ending is much better than the original, but I just could not get into it sadly. Not gonna lie, when I started writing this, I didn't think I would hate this game that much, but the more I think about it, the more I realize how many flaws this game has. If you like this game, great, I get it, and I won't pretend to say I wasn't having fun while playing this, but sadly I think the flaws outweigh the pros in this one. This is another 2D Sonic game, but this time it's in 3D. This was an attempt to make a multiplayer focused game and attempts to be like Super Mario Bros. Games on the Wii. I wasn't a big fan of this game, but it's really not that bad, it's just a really mediocre game. Before we get into the game, let's go over the story. The story is about Eggman capturing big animals.
And then, oh fuck, okay. I didn't know I had that mod on.
And turning them into giant robots that will help him find the Chaos Emerald so he can take over the world. The story is pretty simple like most of these Sonic games, since they aren't that really important to the game, but one cool thing though is that they bring back Fang to be one of the main antagonists in this game, which is nice. They also introduce a new character called Trip, and she was a pretty cool character. I really hope that she shows up in later games or begins to appear in the comics more, since I really want to see her backstory get expanded upon. But now let's talk about the game. There's nothing too different with how this game works compared to the other games, but there are a few differences. One of the big differences is that when you collect the Chaos Emerald you gain a special power deals, but they aren't too special. I don't remember using them that much at all, but it is a good incentive to collect the emeralds. The level themes are pretty diverse and can be fun, but levels like Golden Capital can look pretty bad and forgettable. But most of them look pretty good and are fun to play through. My biggest problem with this game is that it's really fucking boring. Levels can be pretty bare at times and aren't that challenging, which just makes the game really dull and makes playing this game a fucking nightmare of how slow it is. This is mostly due to the fact that the game was trying to account for 4 players, but the problem is that at least the game having a lot of open sections so the screen wouldn't get too crowded, but sadly it's the game having many moments where nothing is happening on screen. But even though the game wants to focus on multiplayer, it has 4 single player only levels in a multiplayer focused game. I don't know why they thought this was a good idea, but I did actually like them, which is mostly because of the fact they resigned with the idea of one player playing them, which is really ironic. The bosses aren't that much better. They were basically the Sonic Rush bosses but on crack. These fights go on for so fucking long. The worst one was the Fang fight in the Golden Capital. It goes on for like 4 to 5 minutes and it's also an annoying auto-scroll with a bunch of shit all over the screen. I really hated this fight. This leads me to talk about the final level. The first act of this level is actually pretty good, but the second act is literally just you going back to the beginning of the first act. It's incredibly lazy. It ends with an annoying long boss fight that goes on for way too long, and I hated it as well. There is a final story for the game, but I heard the boss in it was incredibly bullshit hard, so yeah, I probably won't do that. That just sounds like a nightmare, but I really wished I liked this game more, but the game gets too boring or frustrating for me, which is a shame. A surprisingly good Sonic phone game. Most Sonic phone games are pretty simplistic and don't have much depth to them, but this one's an actual game with a story and many different levels to play through. The story for this one is that Eggman's attempting to use dreams to gain powers from Arium, the Dream Lord, to help him take over the world, but the only way to do this is to use Cream, who is innocent enough to gain those powers, and when Sonic attempts to help her, he and his friends in Eggman are also sucked into the dream world. This leads to Eggman creating his own dream world and tries to force it into reality. This is a pretty unique story that leads to some pretty crazy level design. The action levels are pretty good and can be pretty engaging, and also have spots where you explore the area to find keys to unlock the rest of the level. There are also smaller levels that reuse parts of the main levels to give players different challenges to do. The only problem with these levels is that they're pretty repetitive and also spend a lot of time on rails, but that's mostly like due to the fact this is a phone game and they can't have levels be too complicated, so it's pretty excusable. Another cool thing is that you get to play as multiple characters with their own abilities, and they're all pretty fun to use besides Tails and Cream, since their flying is really slow for some reason. The bosses are actually pretty fun and engaging as well. I think my favorite one is the giant crab, where it's slowly deflates as you hit it more and more until he's just a small crab. The final boss is also really fun as you switch between characters as a giant Eggman tries to attack you, and it's really fun and engaging. Probably one of my favorite final bosses in this franchise. Honestly, I was surprised with how fun this game was. While it can get pretty repetitive, it's still an incredibly fun game that you can play on your phone, and I recommend it a lot. Knuckles is about Wade and Knuckles going on a road trip to Reno so that Wade can reunite with his lost father and beat him in a bowling tournament. This show is actually pretty divisive amongst people, as many people were upset that Knuckles wasn't the main focus in his own show, as most of the focus was put on Wade and his family, but honestly, I really like this show. I do agree that the way the show was marketed was bad. It was marketed as an action show starring Knuckles, not a buddy comedy show. I get why it's hated, but honestly it's really funny and evokes that early 2000s comedy.
In order to become a true warrior, he must learn to rescue himself.
The first and second episode are really great. They're able to mix action and comedy incredibly well. I love the part in the second episode where we see how Wade envisions his rescue plan to rescue Knuckles, who got captured, and when he gets to the place he immediately screws up, and it's just so dumb and I love it. There are so many dumb jokes like this throughout the show and I love them all. They also make a fucking Holocaust joke in the third episode.
Our tribe has been through some tough times too, minus the giant owls. He's basically Jewish.
The only thing I didn't like about the show were the villains, as they were pretty forgettable. They were only good for setting up action scenes, and that's about it. The fourth episode was pretty wild. It's a rock opera that explains Knuckles' backstories. All the actors were wearing costumes and attempted to emulate the game to tell the story. It was kinda charming. I also wasn't expecting to see Iblis in it, which is pretty cool. I do hope that it means they aren't against telling the Sonic 06 story in an upcoming movie, which would be great to watch. The last few episodes do suck. They focus on Wade reuniting with his father, and it's just cliche at this point. You know the father's going to screw him over, so you're just waiting for it to happen. It just brings the show to a halt. But I did like this joke.
The birds and the bees. I know all about it. I just always wanted to have the talk.
The last episode was pretty mediocre, but at least the fight at the end was cool. I probably didn't hate this that much, since I was aware of the fact that the show was going to be about Wade, so because of that I was able to appreciate what was there, and it was a pretty decent show. It's not something to go out of your way for, but if you're bored and want something that's fun and dumb, this is a great show to watch. When I heard about this movie coming out last year, I wasn't too excited, but once I started playing all these games for this video, I became incredibly hyped for this movie, and did it live up to the hype? Absolutely. Before I get into the movie, I just want to give a spoiler warning, since the movie is still pretty new, so if you haven't watched it yet, just skip to this time frame. This movie is incredibly good. The story is based off of Sonic Adventure 2, but it only takes a few key elements and changes a few things like Zero being alive, but even then it's a pretty good adaptation of the game. But let's talk about the star of the show, Shadow the Hedgehog. He is great in this movie. Keanu Reeves does a pretty good job playing, which is really surprising with how bad his acting was in the DLC.
A beautiful city. It looks like how Maria described the Earth.
My only issue is I wish Shadow had more screen time, since a lot of the time the movie only focuses on Eggman and Gerald, but really it's not that bad. Jim Carrey is really funny in this one. He plays both Eggman and Gerald, and you think that would get annoying, but it never does. I love the VR scene a lot. I do wish that Gerald had a lot more serious scenes, but even then I still love all the scenes of him. I know people got tired of him in the climax, but I really still enjoy those scenes a lot, especially of how they kill Gerald. The human scenes are pretty well balanced in this one, and they actually deliver a lot of funny jokes.
Did it work?
Yeah.
I was honestly pretty surprised when they attempted to allude that Tom almost died from getting hit by a Shadow, especially with Shadow's line. He obviously doesn't die, but it was really jarring to see this, and it really pushes the theme of the movie. The theme for the movie is not to allow pain from loss to change you as a person, and it's done really well in this movie. After Tom nearly dies, Sonic becomes angry at his friends, which leads to the pretty tense scene between him and Knuckles.
Last chance. Where is it?
And once Sonic turns into Super Sonic, he has a big fight with Shadow and wants to kill him, which is an amazing fight. But before I get into the climax, I want to talk about Maria. She was portrayed really well in this. They had scenes where Maria and Shadow were bonding together, which just makes her death so much more impactful. I'm also happy they didn't try to change it or remove it since it's such an important part of Shadow's story. The climax of the film is so fucking peak. After Sonic and Shadow settle their differences, they team up to stop Gerald from destroying the Earth. Getting to hear Live and Learn was amazing. I do wish they would let the song play more, but the fight makes up for it. It's such an amazing fight. It ends with Eggman and Shadow sacrificing themselves by pushing Yark away from the Earth before it blows up, and Eggman gives a nice message to Stone, who I haven't mentioned yet, but he's great in all of these films. They've been alluding to a toxic Yali relationship between him and Robotnik, which is really funny. I love that the actor indulges the gay undertones between them.
Toxic Yowie's the
But back to the message. It's actually a pretty touching message.
You were more than a sycophant to me. You were a sycophant.
I really love this scene, and I kind of hope they don't go back on it, but they might since Jim has said he wasn't against showing up in the next film. I don't really have that many issues with this movie. The only ones I can think of is that the movie could have slowed down a bit, and Gerald could have had a few serious scenes, and I would have loved the scene with Maria and Gerald. But these are just small things that I wish was in the film, which isn't that important. The post-credit scene was pretty hype, revealing Amy and Millside. It takes me back to the good old days when post-credit scenes were actually good, and I'm incredibly excited to see what the next film has in store. Overall though, this was a great movie that I'm probably going to watch way too many times. For the upcoming movie, Sega wanted to release a new game alongside the remaster of Sonic Generations to help promote it, which was Shadow Generations, a game that celebrates the history of Shadow the Hedgehog just like how Sonic Generations celebrates Sonic's history. Before we get into the game, I want to go over the anime short that was released with the game. I won't spend too long on it as I will get into a later video, but some of my thoughts on it. This is an amazing anime short, and I wish that we would have got a Sonic movie in this style. The animation is great, the music is amazing, I love the way they portray Maria and enjoy the ending a lot. It's all amazing and it's an absolute watch for this game. The story for the game is about Shadow taking on Black Doom, who wants to turn Shadow into his weapon by awakening his powers. I love how they allow Shadow to end his edgelord phase and shows him wanting to change for the better.
Your wish for everyone to have a chance to be happy.
The ending of the game is actually really good, as he says his goodbye to Maria and races off to help Sonic, and then goes on to say,
On your feet.
I don't know why they didn't change this line in the remaster to fit the ending better, since they changed a bunch of dialogue in the remaster with several results.
Thanks, Sonic. Now then, tell me, where is the rest of my island?
It's not that big of a deal, but it's kind of funny when you notice it. Let's get to all the stages now, which are all amazing. Space Coast New York is such a great level. I love the remix soundtrack, and they turned a level that gave me such intense anxiety to go through and turn into an exhilarating level. My favorite thing about some of these levels when Black Doom shows up and starts Screw of Reality, which are so cool to look at. It only happens in a few levels, but they're always my favorite part of the level. Railway Canyon is also really great, and once again took a level that would annoy the shit out of me and turn it into a masterpiece. I think what made this game so good was that it remade levels from games that many fans wanted to have remakes of, like Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes, or shows the potential of bad games like Sonic 06 and Sonic Forces. It feels like getting a bite of what could have been and helps make these levels so good. Kingdom Valley was a great level and Sunset High is my favorite level. I love the music and also love this section in particular. I also love Act 2 where you have to maneuver for the level as giant robots try to attack you. Chaos Island is a decent level. I probably don't like it that much because of the fact that I'm not a fan of Sonic Frontiers. It just makes me wish Sonic Frontiers would have had levels like this. Radical Highway is also really good. I just wish they would have focused on remaking the level instead of trying to force in all the Black Doom stuff in it. The game also had challenges like in Sonic Generations, but these are so much better. The only ones I didn't like were the ones where I had to click a number of rings. Mostly because you had to be perfect in these levels, but besides that, all the challenges were incredibly fun. There are also new powers in this game and they're so fun to use. Chaos Control is great to use when things get too crazy. I love to use the wing to skip chunks of levels, and I wish the Stingray was used more as it was fun to use, but the squib power is kind of annoying to use, especially when I'm trying to S-rank Chaos Island as it's finicky at times. The bosses in this game are actually pretty good. The Biolizard fight was great. I wish that the Mill Overlord fight wouldn't have been on the Stingray, mostly because I suck at using it. The Mephiles fight was also great, especially when these two lines drop.
There is no future for you. Ever.
The final boss is really fun as you get to utilize all the powers that you gain, and it leads to such a satisfying boss, especially while listening to All Hail Shadow. Overall, this game is amazing. I might even say it's the best Sonic game of all time. I absolutely recommend this game if you haven't tried Sonic out. It even includes Sonic Generation, which is also an amazing game. Honestly, a 10 out of 10 game for me. And that's it. We went through every mainline Sonic game and it was a blast to go through these. While some of the games were fucking terrible, there are also so many great games in this franchise that I will definitely play again in the future. But I want to do one more thing before I end this video, which is rank all these games, so I'll be going from worst to best. But before I start, this is all just my opinion, so don't lose your mind over it. Sonic and the Secret Rings, Tails Adventure, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 1, Sonic Blast, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, Sonic Advance 3, Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic Lost World, Sonic Boom Shadow Crystal, Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic 06, Sonic Chaos, Sonic Forces, Sonic Heroes, Sonic Rush, Sonic Superstars, Knuckles, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Episode 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog, Knuckles Chaotix, Sonic Advance, Sonic Frontiers, Sonic Boom Fire and Ice, Sonic Triple Trouble, Sonic Dream Team, Sonic Rush Adventure, Sonic Advance 2, Sonic Mania, Sonic CD, Sonic Colors, Sonic and the Black Knight, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic Unleashed, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, Sonic Adventure, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Generations, and then Shadow Generations. This was a fun time. I'm very happy that I did this, so I can see why some people like these games. I'll definitely be keeping up with the series from now on. But this isn't the end of the journey, we are just beginning. In the next episode, I'll be going over all the anime shows that came out. And I hope you enjoyed this video enough to subscribe and watch the next episode whenever it comes out. But till then, I'll see you guys later.